What's going on, everybody? It's Q from Retro Q Game, and appearing specifically on camera because I really want to drive something home and make an extreme point in this video. So what am I talking about anyway? Well, first off, excuse the sun-kissed look. I'm Irish, I'm extremely pale, as you can see, and I don't do well in the sun, so it is what it is. Anyway, let's move on to the whole point of this video. Now, just yesterday, Wolfenstein 2 released on the Nintendo Switch, several months after every other relevant platform. So it released on Nintendo Switch yesterday, and it released on PC, Xbox One, and PS4 about 6 or 7 months ago. I want to say it was December, maybe November, I can't remember, it was a while back. But that's beside the point. It's a late port as expected. But what is expected, and what goes even further than potentially being expected in any way, shape or form, is the Nintendo Switch version of Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, is absolutely 100% plus more, 120, 150, you have to go so far percentage wise just to drive this home. It is absolutely unacceptable. I made a video about this, very similar to Doom, maybe 6-8 months ago, whenever it was that came out, and the fact that Doom was a joke on Nintendo Switch, and it was frankly laughable and an insult that it actually exists. Now, before I go any further, we're going to do the same thing with Wolfenstein. I know I have a decent amount of viewers who are actually very supportive of the Switch. I actually have a Switch. I like it to an extent. I understand what it is and what it should be, and nothing more, nothing less. A bunch of other people out there, again, some of which are you guys watching this video. I'm not going to apologize for this, by the way, so deal with it. You can unsubscribe, you can hate me, you can sound off in the comments, whatever it is. I am driving the point home. This shit is unacceptable. This shit has to stop. And people like you, specifically you people, including the ones who are sub to me, the ones aren't, you are the people that are the problem with the industry and with the Nintendo Switch to an extent. The reason for that is you are supporting this. You are saying this is fine. You know that meme? You know the meme where there's a dog in the fire saying this is fine? That's you. That is you in gaming. That's it. There's nothing else you can say about it. That is you in gaming. You don't demand better. You will sit there and pay full price for unacceptable late ports. Ports that are less than half the frame rate. Ports that are quarter, if not 1/6 or even lower of the resolution, which we'll get to now in this video. We have ones that are unacceptably low in every way, shape and form. Ones that have new settings below the lowest of lowest possible settings, simply because the Switch can't run them. And they're not only using one of these things at a time, they're using absolutely every single one of these at a time to get unacceptable results. And frankly, supporting this, you're the problem. It's that easy. I don't care if I lose subscribers on this video. It has to be said. It has to be drove home. It's the only way you can actually do it, and only way to get this across. Now you can say, you can hang on to your whatever we call a crutch, or your only possible thing. Oh, but it's a portable. It's a portable. The portability this, portability that. Portability can suck my fucking balls. It's that simple. If the games run like shit, if the games look like shit, I wouldn't give a fuck if I could play them anywhere. I wouldn't give a fuck if I could play it on the toilet. I wouldn't give a fuck if I could play it on a train, in a car, sitting in a hotel, sitting at a convention, whatever the fuck it was. If it looks and runs like absolute shit to the point where I want to fucking break it or turn the fucking thing off and hate myself for wasting the money, it's a failure. Every single port, I shouldn't say every single port, but 99% of the ports are unacceptable messes. I mean, let's look at Skyrim for a second. Believe it or not, what most people haven't looked at, and when you check and compare the actual analysis from the technical side of it from Skyrim on the Switch, it is closer to the PlayStation 3 version than the PlayStation 4 version, let alone the obviously superior PC version. But anyway, let's use another example. Doom, completely unacceptable. I've talked about that multiple times in depth as it is. We'll get to Wolfenstein now in a second, but I do want to talk about another one. L.A. Noire, one of the very few third-party ports that you're going to get, let alone being current ones, which it isn't because it's a port. I can't call it a remaster on the Switch because it's a port from the old one, the old console, and when compared to the PlayStation 3 version, which is the lead platform that L.A. Noire was originally developed for, one of the few games that wasn't developed for the 360 and ported over, is developed for the PS3, when you look at it and you compare all the settings, all the resolution, frame rate, whatever, Most of the time, it's inferior to the PlayStation 3. Sometimes it's equal, and one or two times it's slightly better. But let me just drive that home one more time. Most of the time, and in most comparisons, it is inferior to the PlayStation 3 version. Inferior to the PlayStation 3 version. Inferior to something that released over 10 years ago. And you can go, oh, it's portable, it's portable, it's portable, portable, portable. You can portably shove it up my fucking arse for all I care. Not gonna happen. Here's what I want. You can hang on to your portability side of it all you want. Nintendo have specifically come out and said that the Nintendo Switch is a home console first. And its portability and mobile features and handheld abilities and whatever are secondary. It is a home console according to Nintendo. It is a home console to what it's released in. And it will be treated and mistreated and abused and criticized and judged as such. It is an absolute 100% abhorrent failure in the home console regard. It's that simple. This machine, this Nintendo Switch that I'm putting behind my monitor here, it is nothing but a joke. Well, let's count it down. It's nothing but a joke. It's nothing but an indie machine. It's nothing but a not late port machine. It's nothing but what's the best way to call this? It's nothing but a not getting third-party support machine, and it is a first-party machine only. That's it. It's an absolute joke. You people out there that accept this just to get portable, oh, but I can play it wherever I want. Again, I've said it already. You are part of the problem. So let's look at Wolfenstein 2. On the Nintendo Switch. Now, there's no way I'm going to show footage or anything of it, because why the fuck would I buy that joke of a game, and I'm not going to use someone else's footage. But let me drive home this point. This game, Wolfenstein 2 New Colossus, has been cut back and driven back, pared down so much that is unbelievably unacceptable. And again, if you accept it and just say, well, at least I can play it on the go, or I can play it whatever, again, you're the problem. You shouldn't be supporting this. You are giving companies this message that this is okay. And again, I'll get to the whole company side of it now in a minute. So let's look at Wolfenstein on the Nintendo Switch. A lot of the time, even when docked, more prevalent when undocked, but even when docked, the game is so taxing on that piece of shit hardware. I say piece of shit from a technical level, because Mario's fantastic. Zelda is pretty good, but you can't really credit Zelda because it's a Wii U game. Anyway, back to the point. It's so taxing that not only does everything run between the lowest of the low, or beyond the lowest of the low, I should say, but the game not only runs at 30 frames per second, which it cannot keep, but it frequently drops to roughly 360p or very slightly higher. That's right, 360p. To be specific, 640 by 360. Now, I know what you're wondering, 360p, oh, I can't do that too often. Yes, it does. Watch the analysis, read and listen to what they say. It frequently stays at 360p, especially when the action kicks up. Even in docked mode. Let me say that again. Even in docked mode, when it's getting the extra boost of power. Even in docked mode. Of course, it's more prevalent in handheld, which is to be expected. But let me just use that as an example. So 360p, 360 lines of progressive refresh rate. Yeah, I suppose you could say technically call it progressive refresh rate. 360 vertical lines of that. Pretty poor, especially considering that the Nintendo Switch screen is twice that, let alone modern TVs, which are obviously 1080p, or even up to 4K, or my 1440p monitor like I'm recording this at. Although, this is 1080p, but it's regardless. So, let's look at some other stuff that has really strange, not so much strange, but let's look at stuff that has very similar resolutions, or whatever. Now, I can't say very similar resolutions to 360p, because that's actually so old school, I'd need to go get my, Super Nintendo and PS1 and whatnot, and they're in the other room, but that just illustrates another point. So, let's look at this. You guys remember this, right? It's the PlayStation Vita. You know, the thing that was basically dead on arrival? I mean, it didn't... Was it as dead on arrival as the Wii U? I don't know. It's hard to say. Hard to call. But anyway, this bad boy here. This has 544 progressive lines, vertical progressive lines, of resolution. 544. Why does that sound familiar? It doesn't sound familiar because it's higher than Wolfenstein 2 on the Nintendo Switch the majority of the time. Not just frequently, not just in rare occurrences, the majority of the time, even when docked. Remember that, even when docked, not just handheld. But we're gonna go one step further, and we're gonna take an extra little bit here. You guys remember this, right? The Nintendo 3DS. In fact, this specifically is a new Nintendo 3DS, new Nintendo 3DS XL at that. Granted, there's no real difference in the resolution; it's just bigger screen sizes and some of the extra stuff. So let's look at this bad boy. You remember this, right? Two screens. Now, I wonder what the vertical resolution on these screens are. Well, because there's two screens, the top one is 240p. The bottom one is also 240p. So when you add the two of these together, how many vertical lines of resolution is that? Let's do a little bit of math here real quick, because I know most of you Switch owners are probably 4 years old and can't add, because, well, let's face it, your kid's still in school. I don't care if you own sub, guys. It has to be said, and it's going to be said. So, 240p and 240p. You add the two of those together, what do you get? Other than higher than Wolfenstein 2 the majority of the time on Nintendo Switch. But you get 480p, which is 100 lines, progressive lines, vertical resolution, higher than the Nintendo Switch version of Wolfenstein 2 the majority of the time. So that's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? I mean, when did this launch? Like 6, 7 years ago? Was it, what, 2012, maybe 2013? I can't even remember when it came out at this point. But let's go back a little bit further. Now, without going all the way back and getting something like my PlayStation 1 or my Sega Saturn or my Nintendo's. Oh yeah, that's right. Nintendo Switch is just so bad. I just put it in there with such low resolution products. But anyway, you see my point. So let's look at this bad boy. You might be wondering what this is. This is the Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings Japanese, what's the name of it? Nintendo DS. That's right. It's actually DS Lite to be specific. I have my standard, regular, old 1980s looking DS, but it's upstairs in the box. So, and I was playing on this as it was because, I mean, let's face it, I'm playing Hotel Dusk. So, yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, let's look at this bad boy. There's obviously 4 versions of the DS. There's the DS, the DS Lite, the DSi, and what was the other? DSi XL or DSi Lite? I don't remember. I don't care. But they're all the same screen resolution. Which brings us to my next point. Let's look at this. 2 screens again. Nintendo DS, dual screen, two screens. Both of these screens have the same resolution. I wonder how many vertical lines is in every one of these screens. What do you guys reckon? Do you reckon there's 80 vertical lines? Do you reckon there's, I don't know, maybe 100, 120? Maybe something a little bit crazy like 128? Or maybe 146? Or, I don't know, let's go nuts and go with 180. Because if you were to say 180 and add the 2 of these screens together, you would get a vertical resolution of Nintendo Switch version, or equal to the Nintendo Switch version of Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus the majority of the time. But you would also be wrong. Now, you would be right in the sense that you would get the majority resolution, even in docked mode, of Wolfenstein 2 on the Nintendo Switch. But you would be wrong in the sense of these. Because these screens are both 192 pixels high in vertical resolution. That's right. From here to here is 192 pixels. From here to here is 192 pixels. So when you add the 2 of those together, what do you get? Again, I'm going to have to do this math for you guys, because as hardcore Nintendo fans and Nintendo defenders, I mean, you're probably like 4 years old. Go get your parents to actually do this for you, because that's all I can say. Anyway, when you add the 2 of these together, what do you get? You get a resolution of 384 vertical progressive lines. Think of that. Absolutely think of that. Your Nintendo Switch version, with unacceptable graphics levels in every way, shape and form, is running at a lower resolution than this piece of hardware right here. Of course, I'm not saying the Nintendo DS could run Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus, although with how bad it looks on Nintendo Switch, it probably could. But you see my point, why resolution is an issue. Watch any of the comparisons, watch any of the demo showcases, the tech showcases, the visual showcases, whatever it is. The game is a blurry mess. It is an absolute joke. These are people who are playing games. Now, obviously, from what I've heard, it looks okay. It looks salvageable on the small, low-resolution screen of the Nintendo, I was going to call it Nintendo DS, of the Nintendo Switch, the 720p screen, because it doesn't have to stretch it out as much. You can't see all the blemishes everywhere. The majority of people have 1080p TVs. Some people even have 4K TVs. So if you're trying to stretch a 360p image from what the little tiny resolution that it is to 1080p, it looks awful. And let alone on a big 40, 50, 60 inch screen. Now imagine stretching that even further, over 4 times more, not just 4 extra steps, but over 4 multiples more to get it onto a 4K screen. Game is a mess. Now, people who might be out there saying, I know I bashed on you guys, or, well, I should say you guys, the people who I'm specifically targeting this video at, the people out there who are just going to say, oh, who actually I should say should not be supporting this because it's frankly ridiculous and you're part of the problem. Remember this. Oh, people will buy them on Nintendo Switch. Stuff sells on Nintendo Switch. You know your beloved Bethesda? The people that make, originally at least anyway, kind of, to an extent, the Wolfenstein? Yeah, let's use them. And they made Doom when they put that out last year. They made, I was going to say Castlevania, Skyrim as well. There you go, because obviously Konami makes Castlevania. But anyway, let's think of this. Let's think of something interesting when it comes to Bethesda support for the Nintendo Switch. They put out Skyrim, you know, the almost PS3 version of Skyrim. They put out a completely unacceptable version of Doom. They put out an even worse version of Wolfenstein 2. Bethesda had their own showcase at E3 this year. I'm sure you guys watched it. Probably hoping for some announcements or whatever for Nintendo Switch. Technically, you did get some mobile games, that phones and what. Like, where's my new phone? This is getting all the stuff the Nintendo Switch is getting. So, yeah, it'll probably run them better too, actually. And you know what? This is 4 times the resolution of the Nintendo Switch. That's right, 2560 by 1440. Same as my PC monitor. Not the same as the Switch. In fact, exactly 4 times as much as the Switch. So, let's get back to the other thing I want to mention anyway. So, not only were there no real announcements for Nintendo Switch from Bethesda this year, because, well, obvious reasons, but let's look at something else that came up and something else that was very interesting. So, outside of VG charts, because there's no actual proof and I require receipts for all this. So, outside of VG charts, let's look at Doom on the Nintendo Switch. Bethesda have not published these sales results. They've said they were happy with it. Anyone can say they're happy with anything, even if it's a lie or not, even if it lost money or whatnot. They'd say, oh, well, we recouped enough of our investment. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, it'll make perfect sense why now in a second. So, they have not released sales numbers for this game. They have, or at least for the Nintendo Switch version of this game. They have also not released sales numbers for the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim on Nintendo Switch. Out of every single game Bethesda has made in the last, I don't know, dozen, if not 15 years, they've published sales numbers on every game, on every platform. Or at least included like multiples in there as well when they're doing like consoles or whatever. Say like ships 4 million in a month and it'll include all 3 platforms. Whatever. Bethesda were so happy with both of these games that they didn't publish sales numbers. Every other company has published sales numbers for Nintendo Switch games. Bethesda has published sales numbers for all of, if not almost, well, I'm going to say almost all, because I'm sure there's probably one obscure game that I'm completely forgetting about that they didn't publish numbers for. And, well, I'm pedantic, so I'm sure someone is going to get onto me about it. You see my point. So, they're so happy with it that it's basically the only 2 games they didn't publish sales numbers for. See my point here? And not only that, but let's drive it home one last time. Just the other day, Todd Howard specifically said, most people's God Howard. Personally, I think he's a bit dodgy and a bit of a liar and almost a Peter Molyneux type. But anyway, he went over the future with Nintendo Switch and the future of Bethesda Game Studios with Nintendo Switch. And he basically said that, he said the usual PR lines, the ones that everyone else says. It's interesting, it's this, that, and the other. It's cool, it's quirky, it's so Nintendo, it's this, that, and the other. And you know what they said? We have nothing in the works for Nintendo Switch. They have Rage 2 in the works, they have Quake Champions in the works, they have the new Wolfenstein game, Youngblood. They have, what was the other? Doom Eternal. They have Fallout 76. They have not Star Citizen. They have the space game that I can never remember the name of it. And they have Elder Scrolls 6. Right off the top of my head, that is 7 games, let alone the new Fallout game, which will inevitably come, but not the Nintendo Switch. But let's, just for argument's sake, get rid of that potential next Fallout game. We have 7 majorly announced titles from this company that loves and wants to support the Nintendo Switch. None of these titles have been confirmed for Nintendo Switch, and as Todd specifically said, nothing that they're working on at the moment is coming to Nintendo Switch. It's not factored into their equations. They want to do stuff going forward, or so they say, but I mean, come on, let's face it. Ubisoft said that about the Wii U, EA said that about the Wii U, EA said that about the Switch, Ubisoft said that about the Switch, other developers and publishers have said that about the Switch. You see my point. So, take that as you will. you're not getting shit, except for maybe a very late port or remaster, I should say, of something like Fallout 3 or maybe New Vegas or something along those lines. Something that is extremely graphically unintensive. Because let's face it, when Wolfenstein Youngblood was announced, I thought, okay, this might come to Switch in another unacceptable form. At this point, I'm sure Bethesda have just said, okay, we see what Panic Button is doing. We see what they're doing to our console, or they're doing to our games. Look how bad and ridiculously unacceptable this looks. Look how much this portrays an image that our games can look like this on any platforms. You look at Doom, you look at Wolfenstein 2 on PC, they look phenomenal. They play phenomenal. Granted, Wolfenstein 2 wasn't a great game, but it looks and plays fantastic. Doom, on the other hand, was just brilliant all around. I can only imagine someone's first experience, be it playing the game or watching someone play the game on Nintendo Switch of either of those two games, the game is basically a write-off. No one would ever consider buying whatever game because of that. Anyway, it's basically it beside the point. So, usually now is where I do my little outro and whatnot. I'm not even going to do it in this video, because feel free to bash whatever in the comment section. Feel free to defend it. Feel free to defend it some more. Feel free to hate on me. I don't care. If, like I said, this needs to be said. This needs to be drove home. That people like that and people like this are the problem. I realize that some of you are subscribed to me and do fit that category. I'm not apologizing for it. You few, or the not so much few, but the few worldwide that do support this are holding technology and holding gaming back. I can't even say holding technology back fully, because the majority of every other company, publisher and developer are pushing forward without Nintendo, as you can see, because Nintendo can't push forward. Anyway, that's it. I'm out. Say whatever you want. I don't give a shit. Bye.